of these things might be a little bit hard to see, and you're not going to really be able to see them until you get close up into the model, but I'll go over them all anyway. The broad ligament is one of those things that's hard to see on the model. It's this big flat ligament in here. You can see it in the book. I've never actually asked it on here. I don't intend to start because it's sort of weird looking here. There's a picture in the book where on either side of the uterus, almost like a cape, there's this big, broad ligament. They call it the mesometrium. That is the same thing. So you can call it broad ligament or mesometrium. For the ovaries, there's an ovary right there. See that? There, that kind of orange blob. And there's one on the inside right there. There's a ligament that leads from the uterus to the ovary. That's going to be one of the things that's hard to see, but there's a tube right there. There's actually 3 tubes in here. The front tube is called the round ligament. The middle tube is the fallopian tube or the uterine tube, and then the last tube in the back is the ovarian tube. Or, I'm sorry, the ovarian ligament. Visceral peritoneum, that would be a question. That is a membrane that's in direct contact with all the organs, so it's on top of the uterus, it's on top of the ovaries. Let me get the ovary model out really quick. You've seen this one before. That's the ovary model. There's the ovarian ligament again. The visceral peritoneum would be the outer membrane that covers it. The tunica albuginea, you can see that on here as these pink cells that go all the way around with a little blue nuclei. That's the tunica albuginea. The ovarian blood vessels are all these blood vessels right here. The primary follicles are these. And then the secondary follicles, or they call them growing follicles. You can call them secondary if you like. That's this. And then that turns into a tertiary or a grafting follicle, which you've seen these guys before. Then the grafting follicle turns into the corpus haemorrhagicum, which will then turn into the corpus luteum, and then that turns into the corpus albicans, which are all the white things. Okay, back to here. Okay, so this is the bladder, and this is the uterus up here, with the ovary kind of sticking off to either side. Here's what it looks like if you take that piece off. The bladder with the uterus on top, and then the ovary over here. There's a space between the bladder and the uterus called the vesicouterine pouch. And then there's a space between the uterus and the rectum called the rectouterine pouch. Serosa is the same thing as the visceral peritoneum. That could be a question, or I could point to it as this outer layer on top of the uterus. The myometrium, that's this muscular, lighter pink layer. The endometrium is the darker red, innermost layer in the uterus. The vagina, that's this. The fornix, we're looking at only the posterior fornix. On APR, it tells you anterior and posterior fornix. You only need to know the posterior one, so don't worry about the anterior one. But that's the posterior fornix, just the sort of tube that goes towards the back. The orifice would be the hole. The hymen would be a question. It's a piece of connective tissue that would cover the orifice. The vulva or the pudendum just refers to external genitalia on the female, and it includes the mons pubis, which is the fat pad in the front, the labia majora, and the labia minora just inside of that. The clitoris is this right here. The prepuce is the foreskin. It's this triangle of skin right here, and then the glands would be the tip of that. For the uterine tubes, remember we had the round ligament in the front, then we had the uterine tube or the fallopian tube in the middle, and then the ovarian ligament behind it. For those uterine tubes, there are specific for the infundibulum, the ampulla, and the isthmus, only in the book. Okay, back to the uterus here. The round ligament, which we've done a couple times, that's this tube right here. The fundus is the front part of the uterus. The body is the middle. And then the isthmus is where it narrows and kind of tips downwards. The cervix is the bottom. It's not the hole at the bottom, but it's the tissue at the bottom of the uterus. The hole that runs through the cervix is called the external os. And then this hole right here is the internal os. So internal os kind of marks the beginning of the isthmus, and the external os is the end of the uterus or the bottom of it. And the vestibule, that's the first third of the vagina right here. And those two glands, the greater vestibular and the lesser vestibular glands, are glands that are in there. There's no model or no place to see them, so they would be a question. The perineum is this right here. Same thing as in the male, the piece of skin in front of the anus, which is that right there. And then for the mammary glands, those are pretty easy. There's a picture in the